5 days. Because what's going to help evacuate the bowels? I'm not putting any fibre in to get rid of the pizzas and the burgers and the milkshake and the chocolate sundae I had at 5 to 12 the night before I went and saw Joel Furman. Because that was my last day. I thought I better load up. Right? So here am I the next day going, oh, this is murder. Right? So what I want to see people do if they're going to do a juice only is to have 5 days of eating lots of high fibre plant food to get the bowels working, get off their addictive substances of caffeine, of nicotine, of high fat, high sugar. Do the pain while you're eating, not while you're juicing. So then the real question comes down to, I think it's a very individual thing. For someone who's carrying a lot of energy, they can do more than 5 days. But if you're not carrying a lot of energy, I think 5 is about the minimum I have experienced with my community that they really start to see results. Usually 1, 2 and 3 is pain. So you're sort of on your way to the top of the mountain. When you get to 5 or 10, depending on how poor your diet was, you start to see the view and it's amazing and you just want to stay there. So I'm sure those who are experiencing that high now realise that it's like being in the valley with all that garbage is not as much fun as being on the top of the mountain having the view. So then the real question is, I say to people that they know how long they inherently know how long they should impose what we're really doing a nutritional famine. We're really putting a famine in place because we're supposed to go through famines, but, you know, we're too efficient now. There's a feast on every corner. So if we're just going to live a world where we only eat all the time, I mean, I was 40 years of age. That's 40,000 meals without a break before I did this. And look at what it was doing to my system, and particularly with the sort of, inverted commas, food I was putting in. Does that answer your question? Or how much juice a day? I'm sorry. So I was drinking between 6 and 8 20-ounce litres a day on average, 6 and 8. But some days I only have 4. See, I look at it as fuel. I look at it as though that's real. Like I said it before, I'm freebasing Mother Nature. I mean, it's liquid sunshine. I'm putting the complete fuel into my system to keep me going. So that if I'm tired or low on energy or whatever, or hungry, I drink. And some days I needed to have like 20 ounces, and some days 4. So it's once again, but what I want people to do is to think about the 5 colours of the fruit and vegetable rainbow: purple, orange, yellow, green, and red, and make sure that they're getting those colours into their juicing every day. Because we want to try and get as many different phytonutrients and those colours that all hold this energy from the sun, that have different compounds and different properties that help us in our body.
And what I hear Joe saying is listening to your body when you start a reboot, when you start a juicing program, tune in and see where your body's signals are telling you. And some days you did 6, some days you did 4.
Yeah.
And that was just developing an attunement to your body and listening to it every day and then following through with those signals.
Absolutely.
Question over here.
Awesome. This is for Brendan.
Okay.
Brendan, I don't know that everyone here knows who you are. And being like a predominantly raw vegan myself, the greatest thing the majority of us get is, yeah, but how can you be an athlete? So could you give just like a 20-second intro of who you are to everyone here and what you do, like what your regime is? It's nice to see you, friend.
Thanks. So the question was basically a request to introduce myself. So, yeah, I'm an athlete. I used to race professionally. I used to do Ironman triathlon. I did that for 7 years as a career. I've been vegan since I was 15, 22 years now. And it was a transition period, for sure. I didn't start into it and do great right away, so kind of, as you're seeing in this film as well, things aren't going to magically flip overnight. It's a process, and it's a process worth investing time and effort into. Because also, I completely agree, and I found the same thing. My palate changed. My desire to eat good food was so strong, and the desire for the stuff that wasn't so good went away. And that's a great place to be in, because then obviously you just eat whatever you want. It just so happens that what you want to eat is the best stuff. And it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle, obviously, as the point's been made very well up here. So it's really just shifting that, and then everything's easy. It all falls into place, but it won't happen overnight. So be patient, and don't be afraid to transition, and take it slow, and it may take a year. If you've eaten a standard American diet for 4 decades, it will take a year to transition to fully start feeling good, and that's okay. Be patient, and be good to yourself. And I did find too, I will say just very quick, that as an athlete, it helped tremendously for a few reasons. One, reducing inflammation. So you start drinking juices, getting a lot of chlorophyll, those green foods. You reduce inflammation. When inflammation goes down, inflammation you didn't even know you had. Efficiency goes up. It's very, very simple. When efficiency goes up, you move more easily. You don't have to work as hard, and you conserve energy with every muscle contraction. So you can imagine a marathon, half marathon even, triathlon, that's a lot of muscle contractions. So if everyone is easier, think of all the energy you conserve. And obviously if you conserve something, you still have it. So you have more energy because you're more efficient, because your diet reduces inflammation. So that for me I found significant. I found that I was just more efficient. My heart rate came down, my threshold went up, and I became a better athlete. It was basically that simple.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Actually, just like to add to that, actually, I love that, the palate changing has come up so often during this. And to answer, especially for kids, that's actually a great thing to really start developing your palate when you're young. My title at Whole Foods is a health eating specialist, but really I'm a chef. What my job is to do is to convert comfort foods into healthy foods. And really keep that same kind of palate. Why? Because you're used to those comfort foods. There's reasons people eat those. So if you can actually just look at those foods, change them just a little bit differently, you can actually do that. It actually does take about 10 days for the palate to reset. So if you do something like, cut sodium completely out of your diet after 10 days, your palate completely readjusts and you don't need that salt anymore. That's a great thing to really start looking at, not only for yourself, but for your kids, for the rest of your family, and start really just looking at food in that different kind of a way. I always tell people, don't think outside the box. Like, just forget the box that ever existed in the first place. We really need to just completely look at food in a completely new way. That's really, I told Artemis this earlier, that I love that this film is so infectious, because it is. As soon as you see it, you want to show 10 more people it, and they want to show 10 more people. And the more people get this message out there, really we're going to change the way America eats, either one plate at a time or one cup at a time.
Yes. Yeah, one plate at a time or one glass of juice at a time. Yeah, and it's all plants.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions? Right here.
Mr. Cross,
Yeah.
how did you find Dr. Furman?
How did I find Dr. Furman? Well, that's very interesting. If you go in 2007, about 2 months before I started shooting, and you put in doctors and in your Google, doctors and fasting, his name came up first. So I called him and I said, mate, listen, I'm from Australia and I'm coming over to make a movie. And he's going, yes, right. And I said, and I'm thinking about doing juicing only. I didn't tell him 60 days. And people ask me why 60. And I mean, originally I was going to do 40. And the 40 number just came, I was raised a Catholic and I just, somehow 40, and my initials are JC, and I went 40. And then when we put that together, we said, no, you can't do that. You've got to do 60. You can't do that. So we just came up with this 60 as a random number, right? And so I told Joel, I said, look, I'm thinking about doing this, and would you monitor me during my journey? And, I'll get what do you want me to do? I'll do what you tell me. And if things go pear-shaped, I'll stop. So every 10 days, I went and had a blood test at some lab around the country, and we just programmed every 10 days. And you saw just one of the conversations. Because when you make a movie, we shot 500 hours for this film to make it in 96 minutes. So there's a lot of stuff you don't see. And every injection, Joel did it. He gave the results, and it was incredible to see the results, just phenomenally. Each 10 days period, just how the results, and what Brendan was talking about, inflammation is, that's a key. There's two things that I talk about a lot, is inflammation and mucus. And you knock both of those things on the head when you either juice or switch to a plant-based diet. And what you didn't see in the movie was on day 28 when I was driving down the West Side Highway in New York. Anyone seen that movie Alien, with Sigourney Weaver, where she's got that thing inside her? I felt I was like on the set of Alien. There's this thing coming up my throat. And I'm like, hard to breathe. I pulled over, and I'm like, and what happened was there's this huge chunk of mucus, and I've got pretty big hands, right? Like, look at my hands. It was overflowing, and it was in one piece, so I could pull it out, right? And I'm like looking at it like this huge, like Play-Doh, but this. And I became fascinated, and I'm thinking after 28 days, this had been in my gut. And you think about, where does mucus live? Mucus doesn't live in your elbow or your hip or your knee. It lives between here and here. So every time you eat something, it had to get past that mucus to get out. So then I became obsessed with mucus, and I started asking all these. I mean, you know, it's funny. I mean, if someone,